1985 saw the release of Super Mario Bros., the first entry of the Super Mario series. Considered to be one of the greatest games of all time, this NES classic brought a whole new world to first-time players. The two iconic plumbers that starred in the original Mario Bros. Were no longer jumping back and forth through pipes in a static level, and were now on a journey to save the princess within the Mushroom Kingdom. This new game wouldn't be a journey without a new cast of enemies though, starting with the Goomba. Initially known as the Little Goomba, this species once lived in the Mushroom Kingdom as an ally to Princess Toadstool and her mushroom retainers. This all changed with the invasion of the Koopa Troopa. Little Goombas resemble that of a small brown mushroom with 2 feet and no arms, looking a lot like a shiitake mushroom. Although they are the first enemy to appear in the game, the Goomba was actually the last enemy created during development. Playtesters at the time thought that the Koopa Troopa was a bit too tricky as an enemy, so with the little space they had left in the game, the developers used a single image of the Goomba flipped back and forth to simulate walking. Not being much of a threat and only having a walking animation made for new players to stomp and defeat this enemy simply. Since their first debut, there have been many variations of the Goombas, varying in sizes, colors, and types. This enemy is a staple within the Super Mario series. The Koopa Troopa. More commonly known as just the Koopa, these turtle-like creatures are known as the foot soldiers for the Koopa Troop. They are the second enemy Mario comes across and are seen with 2 different colored shells, green and red. As the manual states, red-shelled Koopas are chicken. Because they are very timid, they tend to move back and forth on screen without falling off platforms, whereas green-shelled Koopas tend to keep walking. The creation of the Koopas can be traced back to the original Mario Bros. Game, in which the Shell Creeper appears, an ancestor to the Koopa. Changes to the Shell Creeper such as the ability to jump on them and the ability to kick their shells were made in order to damage them. The Koopa Troopa's Japanese name Noku Noku comes from the Japanese term meaning to walk unconcernedly, whilst their English name comes from Bowser's Japanese name, which we'll get to soon. Much like the Goomba, the Koopa Troopa is in practically every single Super Mario game and has even had changes in their sizes, the color of their shells, what type of Koopa they are, and even how they move. The Piranha Plant. Otherwise known as the piranha flowers, these large carnivorous plants are based on real-life Venus flytraps, as their huge mouths open and close waiting for Mario to land in their trap. The original design of the piranha plant had its entire body colored green, which has now been replaced with its more iconic red and white spotted body. Despite only being plants attached to pipes, later games revealed that some piranha plants can walk with much more figured bodies, such as Petey Piranha from Super Mario Sunshine or even Dino Piranhas from the Super Mario Galaxy games. The Koopa Paratroopa. Also known as the Parakoopa or Paratroopa, this enemy is just a winged Koopa Troopa. Much like their foot soldier counterparts, these enemies come in 2 different colors, green and red. The red-shelled Troopas fly in a set up and down pattern, whilst green-shelled Troopas tend to bounce around towards the player or just back and forth. When stomped on in mid-air, the Paratroopa will lose its wings, reverting them back into a normal foot-soldiered Koopa Troopa. In games where Koopas are playable characters, a Koopa Troopa is usually based with a green shell, whilst a Koopa Paratroopa is normally depicted with a red shell. The Blooper. Originally known as the Blooper, this squid-like enemy was introduced in the first underwater stage of Super Mario Bros. It moves in an odd zigzag pattern that will try to follow the player and is forever in a swimming state. Its name is a pun on bloop, the onomatopoeia for sounds that come from the ocean. Bloopers are normally depicted as white and the number of limbs they have can range from 4 all the way to 10. They make appearances in practically every Super Mario game and are well-known enemies of the sea for the Mushroom Kingdom. Cheep Cheep. Cheep Cheeps are right alongside Bloopers as they debut in the first underwater stage of Super Mario Bros. These pufferfish are most commonly shown as red fish with a white patch on their belly, but have had many different appearances with many different colors, such as green, yellow, purple, and so on. Although they are mostly found underwater, they tend to jump out of water and soar through the air, making for another obstacle in later levels and games. Much like Bloopers, Cheep Cheeps are in practically every Super Mario game and can be considered icons of the sea within the Mushroom Kingdom. The Hammer Bros. Fully known as the Hammer Brothers, this pair of enemies stand upright and throw hammers at the player. The Hammer Bros are equipped with shells bigger than normal Koopa Troopas and can be seen wearing a matching colored helmet. They tend to be encountered where they can jump in between 2 platforms of brick blocks. Because of their difficulty when being faced, they are known as elite members of Bowser's Koopa Troop. Once again making numerous appearances throughout Mario games, the Hammer Bros tend to change based on projectiles thrown. These include Boomerang Bro, Fire Bro, Sledge Bro, and Ice Bro. Bullet Bill. The king of speed as they call it in Mario Kart Wii. Bullet bills are exactly what they sound like. They're bullets with a pair of arms and eyes on each side. They're fired from what was originally called turtle cannons, but are now more known as bill blasters or just bullet bill cannons. Where the original bullet bill would be fired in a straight line, behaviors and sizes would change up in later games. There are many subspecies of bullet bill, but bonsai bill, missile bill, and cat bullet bill are just a few to name. Lakitu. The manual for the game describes Lakitu as the mysterious turtle who controls the clouds. Wearing a pair of goggles and literally riding a cloud, Lakitu is a Koopa Troopa with a big smile to replace his beak. He moves across the screen, following Mario and dropping Spinies to make things more difficult. Where Lakitu is originally an enemy in the Super Mario Bros. Series, he would take on a more friendlier role in later games, such as becoming a referee for racing and sports games, or even acting as the cameraman for Mario in other games. Spiny. Because Spinies are thrown from Lakitu himself, the manual for the game states that these are Lakitu's pets. They hatch from a Spiny egg once they land from being hurled from Lakitu. Sporting a red shell and spikes all over, the only way to originally get rid of these little guys was to use a fire flower or starman. For the most part, Spinies have kept the same appearance in every game, whether it be in 2D or 3D. Buzzy Beetle. Also referred to as Buzzies, these small turtle-like enemies can be described as polar opposites to Spinies. They own a hard, often dark blue shell that cannot be damaged by fireballs, as the manual states. They behave much like a Koopa, as their main attacking method is just to walk up to Mario. If jumped on, the Buzzy Beetle will hide in its shell where it can be kicked to attack other enemies or even break bricks, much like a Koopa shell. They pretty much keep the same design in every Mario game and are often seen in more darker levels. Potaboo. Probably just more known as lava bubbles, these guys are living fireballs that probably haven't had much thought put into them since they're kinda just a bubble with two eyes. They're commonly found in the castle stages for the platforming Mario games and always have the same behavior, jumping out of lava and then just falling back into it. There have been a few variations to different subspecies such as blue and poison Potaboos, but for the most part it's mainly red and jumping out of lava. And the final enemy being Bowser. Otherwise known as the Almighty King Koopa, he is the powerful, fire-breathing leader of the Koopa Troop, repeatedly kidnapping Princess Peach with the ultimate goal of defeating Mario and taking over the Mushroom Kingdom. Created by Shigeru Miyamoto, Bowser's Japanese name comes from a Korean dish known as Koopa. The earliest known design of Bowser would show him as a standing Koopa Troopa with spines on his back and fangs sticking out of his mouth. Due to timing issues, the original cover art for the Japanese release of Super Mario Bros. Was designed by Miyamoto himself. This artwork depicted Bowser to be more of a grey, ox-like character with a lack of horns. This design draws inspiration from an old Chinese novel film adaptation, Alakazam the Great, where Bowser is loosely based off the main antagonist, Gyu Mao. When new illustrations for the Mario series were needed, Yoichi Kotabe was having difficulty drawing Bowser due to Miyamoto not having drawn him often. It was later that Nintendo designer Takashi Tezuka pointed out that Bowser should be a turtle, much like his Koopa minions. Thus, the big and bad Bowser has had his yellow skin and spiky green turtle shell since his debut in Super Mario Bros. Although King Koopa is shown with a green skin all around in some rather odd separate series of media, he's always been the same turtle-shelled leader trying to take over the Mushroom Kingdom.